Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your co-host, Collin Stewart, and today I'm joined by a guy who never gets ghosted. We're going to talk about Christopher Fago's framework for having every demo you book show up and be on time. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Collin, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. You?
Doing great. It's Thursday, so we're getting ready for the weekend.
Right on, man. So tell me, if you're booking demos, but you're a cloud security specialist at RedLock, help me understand what's going on here.
Yeah, sure. So, essentially at RedLock, we have field reps and inside reps. We call the SDRs or the inside guys cloud security specialists, because really what we're learning more and more over the course of the cloud security landscape is that education is the key, right? So it's really more about educating and learning, learning more about your customers and educating as well as, helping them along the way, right? Everyone is migrating to the cloud. It's an inevitable thing. And with that comes just making sure that everyone is doing it securely and safely. And so that is why, we like to use the term cloud security specialist, because we want you to feel like we are the right people to guide you on your cloud security journey, whether or not you go with us. Obviously, we would love your business, but we also would love for you not to leak, millions of personal data for, people all over the world.
Mm-hmm. And one of the, obviously a great cause to be helping with, especially in, considering the, recent events. One of the things I want to point out is you call your BDRs, your SDRs, cloud security specialists, and it sounds like you guys have quite a bit more training than your typical SDR. Like, talk to me about your life in sales so far.
So as far as my background in sales, I've been doing this for 7 years. I've gone from, SDR to, team lead. I've been an account manager. I've been an account executive. I've kind of worn all the hats, which gives me the perspective of understanding how sales operates from, start to finish. What I think is important for, RedLock, a company that's new, or even for more startups to start doing this, is to not hire people for the SDR role as their first sales role, because it is, if not, the hardest sales role. It's certainly up there. Opening is just as hard as closing. And some might argue, it is the hardest thing to do, get the door open. So I think with RedLock, we when they brought me on, they definitely loved my background in terms of, this is my third sales job at 3 different companies, 3 different industries. I've been successful each time, and it allowed them to know that, like, okay, the guy we're going to invest in, he's done it before, and he's not going to, faint at the first sight of like a hard month or a hard day of SDR life, which I think is really important when you think about how much of a grind it is, right? Mm-hmm. And so from a cloud security specialist perspective, how that all ties in, one, we want to make sure that, the people that we bring in understand the learning curve, right? So I never had previous experience in cloud security. Now I can probably speak for about an hour with like-minded individuals. It's been about 11 months. But it wasn't really until about month 3 where I realized, okay, I've got it. I feel confident. I feel comfortable. And, we're starting to see that with, a couple more individuals where, we implemented RedLock U, and, there is definitely a learning curve for cloud security. And it's an industry that it seems like every day there's not only like another, we always joke, another week, another leak, some companies having some sort of, business ending crisis, but it seems like every day there's a new competition in our backyard that does, or at least says they do something similar. It's all, it's all the same buzzwords. So having an understanding and education really, it helps you ramp much quicker, because, I like to say you can always spot the guys who know the words but don't know what they're talking about, mm-hmm. versus the guys who know what they're talking about as well as being able to say the words, right? You can always spot that.
And I think you had an advantage coming into the role, because normally when you're hiring an SDR, it's somebody who's more junior, they're fresh out of college, right? Whereas, and then they're figuring out not only how to sell, how to work in a company, how to be an SDR, and the product, but you've already nailed all those other pieces. You just had to focus on really like nailing cloud security.
Right. I mean, when I joined RedLock last June, the goal was, what the company needed and what was best for the company was more at bats, right? Just more conversations. Mm-hmm. So, understanding that we came out of stealth in May with our Series A, fast forward 49 days to June, I'm now hired as the first inside sales guy on the East. Really, we have 25 states and we just need to have as many conversations as possible. Because once you start having those conversations, you start trading time, telling stories, and eventually things come out where you come out in ahead. You come out in opportunities. You come out in deals. You can't be picky at a company that's essentially 1 month public to certain ICPs or certain tiers, right? Like you can't just go, I only want the Fortune 500. Of course you do. Everyone wants the Fortune 500. Their name brand and they're sexy, but are they ready to be your customer? And are you even ready to support them based on the staff you have?
Mm-hmm. 100%. I think it's such an easy mistake to make. Is like, hey, we're brand new, just got our Series A, just got our seed, just launched our beta, let's go settle the Fortune 500. It's like, are you
right.
ready? Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of tied into, where we were at the time, right? Like when I joined in June, I was the third sales hire on our team. So we had two field reps, East and West. And then we had, we had someone in marketing and a VP of marketing. And that was really the Power Five. And, now you fast forward to today, not even a year since we came out of stealth, the sales team alone, including our channel, if we include all of our sales team, we're about 15. And so now, we're getting a little bit, we have a little bit more structure, but back in June, it was all about understanding what the company needed as a whole, which was just opportunities to talk to companies about what we do and what they're doing. And it's interesting, like you never want to lose, but you learn the most from losing. And I don't think that a company that comes out of stealth that loses the deal really lost, because they probably learned something they didn't know a month ago when they were still in stealth, that you run into competitors that you didn't even think were going to be on your short list.
Mm-hmm. No, today we're talking about at-bats and how to make sure that people aren't ghosting you. And maybe I'll translate that into English, but basically you're booking meetings and making sure people show up to those meetings. So let's talk about meetings for last year and some stats.
Yeah, sure. So last year, I started June 19th, and I scheduled 88 meetings in 190 business days. Right. There was time off, obviously, for vacation and holiday, but essentially coming in fresh, it took me less than a month to get 4 or 5 meetings, just based on understanding the framework that every SDR or even account executive should be able to do. Right. You should be able to be dropped into a process where you can just plug and play the basics that and be successful. Because at the end of the day, unless you stay with the company forever, you're going to be the new guy somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, within those 88 meetings, I was able to consistently, over the first 6 months, I had some months, I think my first month I had about 10 meetings, but over time I pretty much averaged like 20 meetings just to, get the bulk of it. And a lot of those meetings came once I finally got like that confidence, because I was able to, being able to have 88 meetings, 190 business days means I'm basically setting up a new conversation every other day for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And what that allows us to do is go back to the framework of trading time and telling stories. We're a brand new company. We want to tell the story of the industry and how we perceive it. We want to tell the story of how we think we can help you solve the common headaches. And, hopefully you tell us back whether or not A, it makes sense, B, it's even possible that you could need what we provide, and see if you want to learn more. I think you and I talked about this a little before, but winning deals is important, but having conversations is required. You're not going to get wins without that first conversation.
Yeah. And even if the deal goes to a no or a no decision, it's not like it's a no forever, it's
right.
It's future pipeline there. So
for sure. Yeah.
I'd love to sort of steer this into, you mentioned trading time, telling stories. So talk to me about this framework of yours.
Yeah. So when I started in June, we didn't have a technical resource on the East Coast. We had a solutions engineer on the West Coast, but as you know, there's a 3-hour time difference, and we decided we didn't want to lose 3 hours of daylight and, kind of handicap ourselves. So, I suggested, hey, why don't we cut our calls into 30 minutes? Why don't we just do discovery calls for everyone? Because ultimately, like, even if you ask for a demo, not everyone deserves a demo. It's not always the best customer journey, and it's not always the best use of everyone's time, right? If we're being respectful. So what we did was we put a 30-minute cap on our calls, and we tried to use that 30 minutes to determine, who they are, what they're doing, what's keeping them up at night, your standard discovery process. But then at the end of the call, we realized we can now say, okay, let's schedule a demo, and we could pick and choose when our West Coast technical resource was available. And it actually allowed us to have more conversations in the East Coast mornings and more demos in the West Coast mornings, East Coast afternoon. So up front, since we didn't have a technical resource on hand to essentially, do the heavy lifting, we were able to, have less demos, or I would say less is a negative term. I'd say we had more appropriate demos, because in software, everyone's just kicking tires unless they're serious. But really, everyone who spends an hour with you is still suspect. So, we went with that mindset, which was not everyone deserves a demo. What is best for the customer and their journey? And it's customer first, presentation. And you hear a lot of companies who say, look, thanks for the demo request. I'd love to spend like 30 minutes with you to try and tailor it. It's not something I invented. It's just something that everyone does, but we had to do it out of necessity until we were able to hire more. And that allowed us to, we had fewer full 60-minute demos, but we had more 30-minute calls. And even more so, what we started to do later on was we would even just do 30-minute demos, and we wouldn't have like the sales part of the demo at all. Like we would do the sales part of the demo up front, and then the technical part of the demo when they could, get a larger audience. And it allowed you to understand, one, if they're not willing to schedule a second call, were they really even interested?
Yeah. And then you've just saved yourself, the time and I don't know about pain of going through a demo, but I think there's nothing worse than going through a demo with a group of people that just aren't interested. And you're wasting, if you've got one of those like press play sort of demos where you stand and deliver for an hour, I think there's just nothing worse than being on either side of that. So I love that the constraint of not having an East Coast resource has forced you into what is arguably a better best practice.
And yeah, I know it worked out from an efficiency standpoint for me, but also for the customer, right? It was always with them in mind, like, look, we have 30 minutes. Here's my agenda. Do you want to add anything to that agenda at the end of this? And I still do this today. Let's use the 30-minute call to schedule a deeper dive. And that way I don't have to show you 10, 15 slides again. I can kind of like front load the sales, the sales presentation that most people usually check out for, and really use the discovery call more for conversation and less for, here's who RedLock is, here's what RedLock does, here's how we do it, here's who we've helped. Does that sound like something you would be interested in? And just saying like, tell me all about your process and what you're going through. And if it makes sense, let's grab, our technical guys who are much smarter than us and much more in tune with what's going on in the industry to show you what's under the hood.
Mm-hmm. And so, and you booked quite a few of these, initial calls. And it sounds like last year you said you did one every other day, basically every other business day. But you shared your numbers with me, and so far this year you're up to nearly a meeting a day. It's like 0.8 meetings a day. How many?
Yeah. So this year, I've scheduled 59 meetings in 74 business days, and that includes all. I deducted all the time I was out on PTO, but essentially, I'm getting close to almost one a day. That's really my goal for the year, is to at the end of the day have one a day for the whole year.
Now that's a lot of meetings that you're setting up for yourself. So let's jump in. Like, how do you make sure that, because if you got a 50% no-show rate on that, that's a ton of wasted time. So how do you make sure people actually show up?
So, I wrote about this on LinkedIn, and we can share it, in the notes, but essentially, I was a paid user of Calendly. I still use Calendly on the free model. They are literally my next door neighbor on Peachtree Street. So huge supporter, and you got to choose Atlanta. But, as it came to using it, I learned one of the features that they had was like they would auto send a reminder email. And, the copy wasn't the same, but I just looked at the copy and I was like, how can I use this to my advantage? And so that is essentially what I started to do. Essentially today is a good example. I scheduled a meeting with the prospect. I sent him a thank you saying, hey, thank you, Mr. Prospect. We are scheduled to speak next morning at 10 a.m. You should see a calendar invite from me shortly. Send that out, and then immediately send another one that says, if they haven't replied, send a new one that just says, here we'll read it. Essentially schedule another one. You can do this in any of the sales automation tools you use, whether it's SalesOft or Outreach or Mixmax. There's so many now, but essentially you just take your template. Your subject line is confirming, so that when they see it, they're just like, okay, this is not anything I should ignore because it's just a simple confirmation email. And then I just put the name of the meeting, which at RedLock, we have a common terminology that we use for calls and demos so that everyone can just look at the calendar and know, is this something that is, how long is this going to take? And really, it allows us to swap solutions architects now to where they can just go, oh, this is a RedLock demo. I know exactly what this call is going to be about. Mm-hmm. So even if they're not in tune to the sales, because the solutions engineers are a team, right? So they rotate all the time. They're not territory based unless they travel. So I want to be able to say, okay, someone is sick. I got a demo today. I want to put them on there, but I might not have the time to bring them up to speed on 100% of the details. So we use the common vernacular of RedLock demo, and then I put that in the subject line. So confirming RedLock demo, and then I just say, hi, Mr. Customer. This is a friendly reminder to confirm our call for tomorrow. And then I include AM, PM, and the time zone because time zones are tricky. I always include the meeting URL. Mm-hmm. So whether it's Zoom or WebEx or Uber conference, I always put that in there. And then if you have them, it's always important to put agenda items. And I've started more lately. I saw this on the sales development Slack, which was leaving a line blank that just says do you have any agenda items for you to list? Allowing the customer to then add it. Because again, when we talk about time being the only thing we're never going to get back, and that's my big thing is trading time and telling stories. At the beginning of almost every sales call, you have this conversation. You go over the agenda and then you ask, is there anything I missed? Is there anything you want to add? And usually there is. So why not get that out of the way? And then I just say, look, if there's any issues, don't hesitate to email or call me. Here's my personal cell phone. I put that in there. And the reason why I do that is because I personally don't care if you don't show up. Just tell me. And when you give people the ability, I feel like a lot of no-shows happen because you schedule a meeting 1, 2, 4 weeks out. Everyone's forgotten. Jim had a baby. Someone's dog is at the hospital. Every life happens and we forget. And so you got to give people the ability to be human again and say, oh man, I just realized that when we scheduled this, I didn't know I was going to be at a conference all week. Can we move it? Mm-hmm. And that happened last week. So it's really just when you allow humans to be courteous, they usually take it because it's inherent.
But when you toss the meeting so far in the future and then just sit there and cross your fingers and hope they show up, that's sort of a dangerous game, isn't it?
It is. I would say the furthest I would actually schedule a meeting out is 3 months. And I know that sounds crazy. I actually have a template for that as well. Basically, no matter what the situation arises, I had a guy in January and he said, hey, Chris, I'm definitely interested, but we're trying to hire someone first who would actually be the guy to use the product. So can you reach out to me, sometime, in May? So I said, look, why don't we put a temporary placeholder on your calendar for the middle of April? Mm-hmm. So I put the calendar invite middle of April, and I sent the reminder email the Friday before. It was on a Monday. So this was even worse. It might have been the perfect storm. It was 3 months ago, and I scheduled it for a Monday afternoon in the middle of a month. And I sent him the reminder on Friday and then on Sunday because, sometimes I do it twice if it's a little iffy. And he wrote me back and he said, Monday is a holiday in the Northeast. It's Patriots Day. Can we move it out to Wednesday? And I was just like, yep. That's the whole premise, right? It's the whole premise of the actual email. It's not, the agenda is nice to have, but the email itself is just a friendly reminder to give people the out, because there's nothing worse, like you said, than being stood up.
Yeah. And you feel bad because you got stood up. Somebody else feels bad because, they got caught up in other things that were a higher priority than buying some stuff. Right. And unfortunately, as salespeople, sometimes, I spent my whole life in sales. There's life gets in the way. There are active customers that get in the way of buying stuff. And like, you're always going to take that meeting over something where you're buying something, so priorities tend to shift and change.
Yeah, totally. And that, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, right? Like we all have a funny bone, but we all also have a guilty bone, right? Where even if it's things like little things that you wouldn't think you feel bad about, sometimes you do, because we're all human. And so, if I set up a call and it's 30 minutes and I bring my technical guy, or if I don't bring my technical guy and I bring the field rep, right? The last thing as an SDR, and I think this is super key for all those new SDRs out there, is the last thing an SDR ever wants is to invite basically someone that they work with and have them waste their time, right? Because then you have these experienced sales reps who, their time's even more valuable per hour than yours, and they don't show up. And if that becomes a trend, it will cause, unfortunately, it'll cause a little bit of, internal strife, because it's like, okay, well, this guy, every meeting he books for me is a no-show. I don't think he's good at his job. Like it all just bubbles up.
You lose that trust, right? And then when you do have those good booked meetings, they're not going to be super high priority on their calendars either. So
right, yeah, no, and so that's why, yeah, definitely, I definitely think is it another step? Sure, but it's also it'll save you a lot of heartburn, especially if you're a new SDR and you're kind of trying to woo or win others over to make sure that they feel like, okay, I want to take care of Chris because Chris usually takes care of me.
But let's be honest here. It's not that much heartburn, really. I mean, you're sending an extra email. Talk to me a little bit about your cadence here. So when you send a confirmation email, once you book the meeting, then what?
Yeah. So the minute you respond to me with a time and date that you want, I create the invite, and then I reply, and I say like, it's super easy. It's one sentence. It says, okay, you should be seeing an invite soon. Let me know if you don't get it, because things happen with spam filters and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that's it, right? You get the email, you get the meeting confirmation email, then you get the meeting reminder email, and then you get a meeting, an email after the meeting. So it's really what I would recommend everyone out there do is, at the very least, have it be three ways, right? Like if you write me and you say, hey, can we talk tomorrow, Friday, April 27th at 10 a.m. and I just send you a calendar invite and I don't even write you back, like that's not a good look. So I should write you back and say, tomorrow, April 27th, looks good for me at 10 a.m. I'll send you a calendar invite shortly. That way, that if something comes up and I get a phone call and I got to leave the office, you're going to get a calendar invite from me shortly. I don't say when, but it's coming. Mm-hmm. And it goes on my to-do list, and I can, sometimes I do it in real time. Sometimes I do it at the end of the day, although, and we'll get to this in a minute. So send the reply and confirm with them via the instant reply. Then at least the night before. So the last thing I do in my time blocks on every day from 4 to 5, the last thing I do is create tomorrow's to-do list based on things I didn't do today, and send my confirmation emails for the day if I haven't already automated them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, because not everyone has sales automation. Some people are still doing it the regular way. So just create a task in your calendar. Make sure that it's the last thing you do the night before. So even though Collin's left for the day, when he gets my confirmation email, it's the first thing he sees in the morning. And then after the meeting, use that same email where you've said confirmation of this meeting, and put in your post-meeting conversations, like agendas for the next call, or it just allows you to create more cohesion, and people really seem to be attracted to like the thread.
It's more touch points. It's faster recall. So when you're say that person is panicking before their next meeting, they're like, okay, who is this Chris Fago guy and why am I jumping on a call with him? You go and you do this, search your email, or you look in the calendar invite and you see, the agendas in the invite. You see a couple emails from you saying, hey, thanks for the meeting. This is what we talked about. This is when our next call is, and this is what we're going to talk about then. It's a classy approach. It makes it easy. It's simple for you to do, and it makes my job of person attending that meeting so much easier.
Yeah, and I think even if you weren't, what's happening a lot more and more, right? I think the statistic is like an enterprise deal takes like 8 people to get it through. It's like, I think even Aaron said it's like passing a bill in Congress. Mm-hmm. He tweets that a lot, so I remember it. But if there's 8 people coming to my call and I only invite you and you forward just the invite, wouldn't it be nice if you had you could forward the reminder with the agenda that asks you to, insert anything I've missed, or it just gives people the ability to be more engaged, and being engaged is the game when it comes to sales, no matter what role you're in.
100%, Chris. So last sort of question before we wrap here. What are we missing? What haven't we covered? So we've talked about, how you get people, to on these meetings with your demo process. We've talked about making sure that they're showing up. What are we missing here? I think if there's a takeaway, it's just, kind of be undeniable, right? I have people ask me all the time, like, when do I get to do this? Or how do you become an A player? And you see these threads all the time, like, how do you become an A player as an SDR? So I've been an SDR for 3 years. Before RedLock, I generated over $3 million in cold pipeline in a span of 18 months as the first SDR hire for that company. But you do see it a lot. I'm sure you see it a lot. Everyone's saying, how do I be an A player? And I think you just got to be undeniable. Being in sales development is hard. And, I saw the term was surfboard shoulders, right? You can never be too high and you can never be too low, because you'll fall off the board. And that's what it's like to be in the SDR driver's seat every day, because your wins are wins, but your losses, you can't let them drown you. And, that's kind of my takeaway. Right on. Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to drop a link to your LinkedIn article in the show notes. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can go look up Chris or check out the show notes, and Chris's link is right there. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I think in June I'm going to start doing 15-minute trade time and tell stories. I want to get to know more people. We have this wonderful thing called the internet, and we should all help each other out however we can.
Right on. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, Chris. Great having you.
Of course. Thanks, Collin.